Hi, my name is Demetria, and I'm an author and podcast coach, and I'm happy to be your host. I created this podcast to encourage women entrepreneurs of faith on your business journey, so join us as we help you to discover how to gain kingdom business clarity and turn your profitable passion into a plan of action. You're listening to the Her Business Elevated podcast, episode number 52. This podcast is sponsored by Faith Media and Impact Podcast Coach, which is a service that helps women podcasters to boldly share their voices and their powerful messages through the medium of podcasting. So you can find out more about our podcast coaching services and courses by visiting impactpodcastcoach.com. So have you been thinking of starting an online business, but you just haven't had the courage to take that leap of faith? Well, on today's interview, we have the joy of speaking with Chera Meredith as she shares her journey of entrepreneurship with us. Chera is a believer, a wife, a mom, and a video game developer. She taught herself how to code and make games. She loves stories, awkward situations, and nature. And she serves on the worship team at her church as well as on the board of a few nonprofits. She loves living in East Tennessee and wandering outside any chance she gets. So we're really happy to have her on the show today. And again, if you have been toying with the idea of starting a business, this episode is going to be for you. It's the encouragement that you need to get past any hangups you might be having and to press forward with the business ideas that are inside of you, hidden in your heart. So sit back and relax and get ready for this motivating conversation ahead with Chera. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Her Business Elevated podcast. I have a special guest today. Her name is Chera Meredith, and she is a believer, a wife, and a mom, and a video game developer. And I thought this would be so fun and so awesome to have her on, just because I have a lot of questions for her. And I think it's wonderful to talk with someone who's in the software development, video game development industry. I don't have any connections with anyone else in the industry right now, so I would love to find out how. Actually, I have a lot of questions for you, but first, let's just get to know you better. What are some of your favorite pastimes, things that make you happy in life, and just introduce yourself and your family.
Yeah, well, like you said, my name is Chera Meredith. And my favorite things to do, aside from playing video games, which I do love, would be to be outside. I love nature. I have a garden that just gets bigger and bigger because I can't stop. And so I love to be outside any chance I can. I have two kids. They're ages 12 and 9, both boys. So they like to get me outside on the trampoline or doing things like that. I love spending time with them. My husband works from home as well, so we're together a lot, and we still really like each other a good 90% of the time. So we spend a lot of family time. Yes,
I can imagine. Yes. Okay. Well, that's really cool. So the listeners of this podcast want to know about some encouragement for starting their entrepreneurship journey. And some are already on their journey, have been doing it for a while, but just love that, extra bit of encouragement that we always need. Sometimes we burn out and things like that. So I would love to hear about how you got started in entrepreneurship. How did you get into video game development?
By accident, I believe. I did not necessarily mean to start a business, certainly not a video game business. But like I said, I have two kids who, there's a funny thing about having kids that was very surprising to me. And I think that sometimes they give us permission to play and engage with things in a different way. And so when I had my oldest son, he was very much into anything electronic, anything mechanical. I could tell right away was just fascinating to him. And so he started getting into video games at a very young age and was just fascinated by them. And my thought was, if that's the world that he's going to be in, then I want to learn more about it. And so I started playing with him and then tried to think of maybe there was a project that I could do for him. And that one project turned into about 7 years of learning how to make games, how to code, how to use all the software and tools if I had known at the beginning that's what it would have been, I would have said no thanks. I'm out. That's way too much as a young mom with kids at home. One of mine was in diapers at the time, so it was a lot. But I think God is also good sometimes not to give us all the information up front. So I could say yes in little pieces. And by the time I had learned enough to be able to do a project on my own, I was very into it. I was committed. I was like, oh, this is my thing. I really found something special for me.
I love that. There's something special for everybody. And what you're doing it's unique. I mean, I wish I'd learned more about coding. I tried. I do some web design coding, but it's very different with what you're doing. And I just find it so complex. And I just admire that you stuck with it. I think it kind of takes that sticking with it, that stamina, in order to actually see a project unfold, I'm guessing.
It does. It does. And I think as entrepreneurs, we probably have that in common, that it does require, especially those early days where everything is unknown and you don't know how this is going to go. It just requires a lot of faith and perseverance to stick with it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit about your games. Like, how many have you developed, and are they geared towards children or adults? I know you said you started, like, you were inspired because you worked with your own son. So are they children's games or adult games? And
it started out that way. It did start out for something I wanted to make for my kids. And then it took so long. I think they're probably old enough to finish coding it with me at this point. So it did evolve as time went on to something that was more for me and more for whatever kids might want to play. So the first project that I started working on was a point and click adventure. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
Not really. It sounds cool.
It's the kind of game that I grew up playing with the floppy disk you had to put in the computer. And then, yes. So I played a lot of those as a kid. So wrapping my head around that kind of game felt like an easier start for me than something big that the kids were playing now. So I started with something a little more old school. And as I've grown, I've learned a whole lot more. So now I'm expanding into some other things. That game we're still working on because things take a lot longer than I thought they would, but we'll finish it within a couple of years. And then we have one casual mobile game that we've released on iOS, and it's called Cozy Maze Game. That one I actually made with my oldest son, which was really fun. So he did a lot of the artwork and I did the coding, and we made it together in a short time period and then finished it and put it on the App Store. So that was really fun that he can say he has a game that he's worked on that's on the App Store.
Oh my goodness. That's like a memory that he will have cherished in his heart.
I hope so. It's certainly one for me.
Yeah.
And then the last game and the most recent game we're going to be releasing this summer, and it's called Insectarium. So it is what we call a cozy bug catching mystery. So you actually go into the world, you explore, you find bugs, and you catch them for your bug museum.
Oh,
and
wow.
A bit of a mystery to solve while you're doing it. But that one we have all pitched in as a family to create, and that's coming out within a few months.
Okay, that's amazing. So you've all pitched in. So your son is working on graphics.
So yes, my 12-year-old's in the pixel art, doing the artwork. My husband loves to write. So he's written a lot of the mystery and the dialogue and quests for the game. I'm doing the coding and game design. And then my youngest is really into bugs. So he's telling us what we should put in the game and where to find them and all those kinds of things.
That is so amazing to me. The whole family entrepreneurship thing like this. Yeah. That is really cool. It's hard work. I know you guys, because you probably have to separate to like work from, okay, now it's time to rest.
It's not for the faint of heart, for sure. Yes.
But that's amazing. So, okay, that said that you guys are working together on a lot of this, what are some of your biggest challenges in entrepreneurship?
Oh, I think the biggest challenge for me is really all in my head. And I think my husband would say the same. I mean, our day to day is pretty much the same every day. We get up, we make coffee, we work at the computer, and what that looks like might differ a little bit every day. But until we release the game, that's the day. We have to just work to finish it and put it out there. So there's not a whole lot of, action. Like I wish it was more like a great montage where you code it and you get it out and everything's exciting. And it's really more of just discipline to get it done. But the head battle is really challenging because some days I wake up feeling motivated, or we got a few more likes on our Instagram post. And so I'm like, oh, someone actually does want to play the game. And then other days I'm thinking, who would want to try this? This was just a weird thing that was in my head. I can't imagine someone wanting to buy it. And so that swing of being hopeful and then being a little discouraged is that's where the challenge lies for me.
Yeah. And I think you've nailed it with that. Just the realness of what you're sharing is what all of us feel. And I think in entrepreneurship doesn't look exciting every day. It does look like the grind of, like you said, getting up and having your cup of coffee and sitting at the computer. And it looks that way every day. And that's the thing. It's like, even with my Instagram, right? I try to think of different things I can put on the account, but like, seriously, there's nothing that anybody will want to see. I'm just sitting here and I'm working. So I love that you made it like so plain and so real that is the reality of entrepreneurship and the consistency of day to day to day to day until you finally have that break. Right. And for you, like your first game, how long was it before you finished the first one? Was it 7 years or
the first? And it's not even done yet. So we're looking at 8 to 9 before it's all done. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Long game. Most are not that long, but we know what we were doing.
I was going to ask starting you, out like a typical time frame,
right? But a lot of buffer for figuring things out in that period.
And you're parenting and you're raising a family and just all of life,
Right.
So I just feel like it's such a reality check for anybody listening right now that's thinking about jumping into entrepreneurship. Like, yes, within 2 years, we're going to be 6-7 figure income earners and millionaires or whatever. It's a lot of work and there's a grind that happens that does not look pretty all the time. And like you
absolutely,
said, there are days when you feel encouraged, like, oh, got an extra like, somebody's interested, and then wait, crickets. Right. So we all go through those bumps and ups and downs in the journey. So thank you for sharing that and just being honest about that, because that's what it is. And
certainly
we need to hear that. Okay. That said, there are listeners who have that big dream, but they're concerned that if they take that big leap of faith, that they will have to sit it out for a decade, or they're like, I don't want to do this because this might be more than I want to bite off right now.
Right.
But there's that big dream inside and they want to try. What would you say to that kind of, that friction between wanting to start, but knowing that there's probably a lot ahead that they're not going to be able to avoid?
Right.
And it's not all going to be pretty. And so do you just keep things the way they are and just keep working and do what you've been doing, or do you start that dream anyway?
That's a good question. And I feel like you're asking me, to tell someone to jump off a cliff. And I want to say, how good is the parachute before they jump? Right. There's a lot of ways to answer that question, but I will say some of the things that contribute for me are, for one, I ask myself often, am I happy with how I'm spending my time? Because whether or not this is a success, I can't get this time back ever. And so I want to be sure that even if we're making games and it all falls flat on its face and we have to go get quote unquote real jobs somewhere, I want to be happy with how I'm spending my time. And so that's a big question that I have to keep checking myself with. And so far, I would say I'm really happy with this. I like the crunch of trying to create something and get it out there. I love that I get to work from home, that I do get to be with my family a lot more. Yes, there's a lot of struggles with it, but I'm happy in that struggle. And then another thing that I consider is that my kids are watching.
Yeah.
And they're watching me take risks or not take risks. And what do I want them to gain from that? I think and I hope that they see me going for something and being content even in failure. Obviously there's room for grief and disappointment when things fail, but I want them to grow up knowing that it's okay to take risks and it's okay to fail and try again. And to do that, I have to model it, which is not my favorite thing.
But it's so necessary. And I
Yes.
love how you said that. So our children are watching, and I mean, it's the reality, it's life. And what you said was you wanted to make sure that you're spending your time in a way that you will not regret it later. And
Right.
so when you love what you do and you have a passion for it, it's never a waste of time, because
Right.
obviously the passion's there for a reason. So it's
Yeah.
never a waste of time. And I think that those listening who are on the brink and trying to figure out, well, is it something I should do or not? Well, yeah, I mean, count your costs and
Mhm.
have practical
Use
things in
spreadsheets.
place. Exactly.
Yes.
All of the things that we need to do before we jump. But
Right.
but do jump. If that's something that you want to try, then it's okay.
Right.
And
Right.
it'll be okay. Um, how do we take the rest that we need, and the joy that we need when we feel the nerves and we're building a business, but yeah, we need to be able to like actually enjoy our work and enjoy our lives? I know you mentioned gardening for you, so
Yes.
everybody has something, but what are some ways that we can find that rest and joy in our work?
That's a great question. And it probably is a little bit different for everyone. And I think some of that is exploring, with yourself and with God about how you feel refreshed. How do you get recharged? And so for me, being outside is recharging. Music is also refreshing. I love music. And so I have to, for one, I have to be able to recognize when I am needing rest, when I'm at my limit, when I'm getting frustrated. And then I have to be able to make the decision to do one of those things and use a tool in order to get recharged, preferably before I snap at my husband or my kids in that stress. So that's the growth point. If I can do it before then, that's ideal.
That's ideal. Yes.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah. And I just think that we're on this journey. There's so much to learn. We never arrive. We're always moving forward. And even once we've got the first project complete, there's like other projects that we want to start or maybe have been starting along the way. So it just kind of constantly feels like we have so much going on, up in the air, right? So many plates in the
Yes.
air. But I love that you're saying that you found your rest, in different things. For you, it's music, it's gardening, and you're finding interest outside of your work. Like it sounds very much like you have a holistic view of life. You're with your family and you're working and you're enjoying the things that you enjoy. And your kids are getting to see you in this natural habitat of entrepreneurship where you're not putting them aside for the work. It's just like all kind of
Right.
blending. And I love that. So
Thank you.
I think
Yeah,
that's
it is tempting when you're pushing toward a goal, and if you're especially uncertain if this is going to work, there's a lot of temptation to just put in a few more hours, do harder work. If I could only get to this point, then we can rest. And that is something that my husband and I have to check each other on, is when we say, when we get here, when we finish this, or when we have this much money coming in, then we'll do A, B, or C. And while we, can realistically have a list of the dream vacation we want to take whenever that happens, there's a lot of things that we probably need to go ahead and address now, because, like I said, we don't get time back. So if we're talking about taking the weekend, to go camping or something like that, maybe that's something that we need to look at and stop saying when we get here, then we'll take those opportunities. Like we need to this is life. This is it now, here and now.
Yeah. Do it now. You can
take the weekend camping trip, right? Take the hour for dinner, take the time to do the things now.
Exactly. Living life in the moment, because pushing it off later becomes later and becomes later and becomes later.
Right.
So it's so wonderful to like realize, okay, this decade is here for just a short while, then there's another decade. So while we're in this place, why not just get the most out of it, enjoy it, every bit of it, and no regrets, absolutely no regrets. So I love that. I think our listeners are going to want to reach out to you and find out more about your video games. And I do have some mompreneurs that listen. So this will be interesting to hear about, like, how can our listeners reach out to you for more information on the games that you have created with your family?
Yes, we have a website. Our company is called So Peculiar, which is such a weird word to spell, but it's SOPECULIAR.com, sopeculiar.com. We have a mailing list there you can sign up for. You could also follow me on Instagram at _Chera, CHERA. And those are probably the best places to get a hold of me. Please feel free to email or reach out anyway, because I love talking with other women who are working on their own business and trying to grow something. I think it's awesome that we can support each other.
Yes, that's what it's all about, encouragement. And thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Demetria.